Good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Thank you very much for being with us. We're going to begin this morning with the widening impact of the war with Iran. Israel says it has killed both Iran's top security official and the head of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard's all-volunteer Basij force, the key militia used to suppress protests in the Islamic Republic. Well, the Israeli military says they were killed in an airstrike last night. Iran has not yet commented on that claim. Also this morning, the Israeli Defense Forces issued an urgent warning for residents of southern Lebanon to move north without delay, and warning that any move south may put your life at risk. This comes after Israel announced a new targeted ground operation on Monday against what it says are strongholds of the Iran-backed militant group Hezbollah in southern Lebanon.
The Israeli defense minister gave no indication of when this ground maneuver would end. He told the hundreds of thousands of residents displaced from southern Lebanon that they would remain evacuated until peace was restored for northern Israel. Across the region, Dubai International Airport resumed limited flights on Monday. The airspace briefly closed after an Iranian drone attack on a fuel depot near the airport, causing a fire. Some flights were canceled, others were suspended temporarily, disrupting travel at the world's busiest international airport. Back at home, President Trump has made little headway in convincing both strategic rivals and NATO allies to help out with opening that critical Strait of Hormuz. Daily oil exports from the region are dropping, and gas prices here in the U.S. have rapidly climbed. We have a team in place this morning to help us break down the latest, including the war's ongoing political and economic fallout. NBC News correspondent Raf Sanchez joins us now from Beirut with the latest. Raf, good morning. So let's start with this developing story. Israel saying it's killed both Iran's security chief and the head of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard's all-volunteer Basij force. The Iranian government has not responded to these claims, but what can you tell us about these two figures and just their importance to the Islamic Republic?
Yeah, guys, good morning. These are both very senior members of the Iranian regime, and if they have indeed been killed, that is a very significant development. Ali Larijani was the secretary of the National Security Council, but that doesn't really capture his importance. He effectively has been Iran's wartime leader, with the former supreme leader killed, the current supreme leader wounded, potentially out of the picture. It has been Larijani who seems to be running the country day by day. Now, he, according to the Israeli defense minister, was killed. The Iranian government hasn't confirmed that. Interestingly, his Twitter account has been active this morning, but it's posted a handwritten note, allegedly by him, which is offering condolences to the families of those sailors killed when a U.S. submarine sank an Iranian warship right at the start of the war. So that is obviously not proof that he is actually alive. The other figure that the Israelis are claiming to have killed is the head of the Basij. Now, this is the militia force that is responsible for a lot of the internal repression in Iran. So when those protesters took to the streets back in January, it was often armed members of the Basij who were sent out onto the streets to confront them. So the fact that the Israelis are targeting this figure does appear to indicate that they are still holding on to hope that there could be regime change and that killing him might open the way for protesters to go back on the streets. Guys.
Raf, as Israel carries out this new ground operation in southern Lebanon that we mentioned against the Iranian-backed militant group Hezbollah, tell us the situation there on the ground in Beirut. How's the country managing this large-scale displacement of citizens?
Yeah, Savannah. So some 800,000 Lebanese have been displaced by Israeli operations so far. That is 1 in 7 people in what is a pretty small country here. And everyone from Beirut to the rest of the country is holding their breath and watching what appears to be a growing Israeli ground offensive down in the south. The Israelis have pushed about 5 miles into Lebanon so far, and nobody knows where they're going to stop. And the big fear here in Lebanon is that they are basically looking to create a buffer zone in the south of this country to push the entire civilian population out, and at the same time push Hezbollah, the Iranian-backed militant group, away from Israel's northern border. Guys.
Raf, we're hearing from some countries, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, the United Kingdom. They all released a joint statement yesterday. They're calling for Israel and Lebanon to negotiate an immediate de-escalation, to respect international humanitarian law. What's the significance of seeing this outside intervention from these countries, these allies?
So, Joe, we have seen since the beginning of the war that a lot of America's traditional allies in NATO are basically bystanders here. They're not involved. They weren't consulted by the U.S. and Israel when they launched this war. And it's really not clear that this statement is going to have any impact at all on the thinking of the Israeli government. There is an effort underway to try to get some kind of ceasefire talks going. The Lebanese government has said they are prepared for direct negotiations with Israel, something that hasn't happened before. But Israel, for the moment, is not signaling it's interested. They are pushing forward. And it's worth saying, guys, that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu faces an election in a couple of months and may want to be seen as a kind of wartime leader heading into that vote. Guys.
Raf, by the way, back there where you are, what role, if any, is Lebanon's government playing in the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah?
Yeah, it's a really good question. The Lebanese government are basically bystanders here. Hezbollah is kind of a state within a state. It has a military that is much more powerful than the Lebanese army. And so the Lebanese government has pretty limited ability to do anything here. The Biden administration negotiated a ceasefire back in late 2024, which said Hezbollah had to be disarmed and the Lebanese army had to take full control of southern Lebanon. That just hasn't happened. The Lebanese government is weak. It's a question of whether there is enough will here. There's real fear that if the Lebanese military were to confront Hezbollah, you could have a civil war. This country, of course, had a devastating 15-year civil war. So the Lebanese government basically on the sidelines at this point. Guys.
All right, Raf Sanchez in Beirut. Raf, thank you.
NBC News Chief White House Correspondent Peter Alexander joins us now with the latest from Washington. Peter, good morning. So President Trump is stepping up really this pressure campaign on U.S. allies. I want to play from a press conference yesterday, him urging America's NATO allies to get involved in unblocking the Strait of Hormuz, of course, as oil and gas prices surge. Let's listen.
We strongly encourage the other nations to get involved with us and get involved quickly and with great enthusiasm. Some are very enthusiastic and some are less than enthusiastic, and I assume some will not do it.
Peter, what has the response been like from world leaders?
Well, so far, most of those world leaders, particularly in Europe, have been largely resisting the president's demands for help there. They are in sort of a tough situation because they don't want to sort of ruin the long-term relationship they've had with the United States here. But the president views this in a lot of ways as a test of their commitment to that continent, to Europe's security, warning that Iran could strike their region and talking about the real need for them to have access to the oil that comes through the Strait of Hormuz. But just go down the list and listen to what some of them have said. We heard from the German defense minister saying this is not our war. We did not start it. The French foreign ministry posted that their navy is basically going to stay put in the eastern Mediterranean, what they described as a defensive posture, in effect saying they're not going to go over to the strait to help as the president's desiring. Italy effectively saying the same, and Poland has now ruled out sending forces of its own right now. And as it relates to the United Kingdom, obviously one of the U.S.'s longest-term allies throughout that region, the president in recent days has come to sort of mocking the PM, the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer there, and Starmer himself said about the U.K. that we will not be drawn into a wider war with Iran. I think there is really some real concern right now, even among some of the president's top allies, that now day 18 of this war, it has the potential to stretch on. And while the military triumph is obvious for the U.S. and Israel, the impact and the ability of Iran to drag this out and have real impact on the global pocketbook, the global economy as it relates to oil, I think is one that's causing sincere concern.
And with that in mind, Peter, let's dig into some NBC News reporting. Several sources telling us President Trump is regularly given options to end the war in Iran. What more are we learning?
Yeah, that's his new reporting that comes from 6 people familiar with these conversations right now, in effect saying that military officials have included options in the regular war planning to end the conflict. But you know, the president is hearing from aides and advisors pulling him in different directions. You have some focusing on this exit strategy that have real concerns about the global economic instability, as we were just talking about. Others are talking about the need to stay to try to further erode the Iranian regime's influence there. So the off-ramps are a part of the daily war planning right now. They're also that daily war planning includes some conversations about escalation as well. But certainly at the end of the day, as the president's indicated, as he said in a conversation with a Fox News host just a couple of days ago, this thing will end when I feel it in my bones, it may be more complicated than that. He could end it, perhaps, and try to declare victory after the successes in Iran itself. But as for the Strait of Hormuz, that one is proving increasingly difficult for the president right now.
Peter, we're hearing the president may delay his upcoming long-planned summit with China's Xi Jinping. What was meant to be the focus of that, and do we know what could be moved to?
Well, there's a lot on the plate for the U.S. and China to discuss. Now you add the war to that, but obviously there's the topic of trade, the topic of Taiwan, and concerns about Chinese aggression toward that region right now. There have been some high-stakes talks that had effectively just wrapped up yesterday in Paris. They were supposed to set the table for the president's meeting with Xi Jinping in Beijing to take place in a matter of weeks from now. These are impactful, potentially, the conversations they would have as it relates to trade and Chinese access to beef and chicken, to crops in the U.S. The U.S. wants better access to rare earth minerals in China right now. So when will it happen? It's not clear. We don't have any new date yet. The president has indicated he thinks it could be delayed about a month or so, which would likely put this at some point in April, perhaps even into May.
All right, Peter, thank you so much.
For more on President Trump's demands of some of America's most prominent allies, let's bring in Elise Labott. She's the author of Cosmopolitics on Substack. Elise, good to have you with us again. So
good to be with you.
Let's hear more of what the president had to say, what we were playing a moment ago when he was speaking to reporters in the Oval Office. And he seemed less than pleased with the response from world leaders to his demands for help.
They should be not only thanking us, they should be helping us. What does surprise me is that they're not eager to help.
So, Elise, I mean, critics of the president have long said, hey, you need to treat our allies with respect so they're more likely to help out in a situation like this. Are you surprised no allies have signed on to help so far with this issue in the Strait of Hormuz?
I am surprised, Joe. Not necessarily because President Trump, as you said, has been, warm with allies. You have to remember, not only did the president not consult with the Europeans before he went into this war with Israel. You have to look at the last few months, what's happened with Greenland, what's happened with Denmark, all the criticism of NATO. I mean, there's some raw feelings there. However, this is really an issue of security for the Europeans. They're the ones that are even more affected, I think, by what's going on in the Strait of Hormuz. Talking to some of the Gulf allies in the region, they're saying, listen, if you don't want to be part of this offensive war against Iran, the least you could do is join the defensive part. Come defend, the Gulf areas. They're the ones being hit. We've had a good relationship with you in the past. And so even though, they may want to be begrudging about it, I think there is a little bit of surprise, in my opinion, that they maybe not that they're not eager, as the president said, but certainly that they wouldn't at least join the defensive part, not their own defenses, but the security of the Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz.
Do you think at some point they're just simply going to have to get involved because of the economic impacts that continue to spread, given that a fifth of the world's oil supply passes through the Strait of Hormuz?
Oh, no question. I mean, and you saw today that a UK official vessel might have been hit in an area around the United Arab Emirates in one of those big ports. So I think it's going to become even incumbent upon them to join this effort. I think what is incumbent upon the president is to exercise that kind of diplomacy. That's unglamorous work. That takes work. Diplomacy, putting together a coalition. I'm surprised that it wasn't done before they went into the war, thinking about the Strait of Hormuz, how it could be closed, defending the Gulf. This is the kind of coalition that you generally set up before you go to war. But certainly right now, it can't just be, a lot of bullying from the president. It has to be that, patient diplomacy. Calling President Trump should be calling all of the allies right now, talking to them about the importance. Marco, I'm surprised when I was covering, the State Department as a day-to-day correspondent, you'd have one of the secretaries of state fanning out across Europe, trying to secure that support. I'm sure Secretary Rubio is on the phone right now, but you really need that one-to-one diplomacy to convince the allies that it's not just helping the United States, but it's really in their interest.
At least with no off-ramp in sight, at least right now, where do you see the conflict going from here?
Well, it's pretty clear that the regime is not going anywhere. And in fact, I think you're going to have a stronger IRGC, a stronger kind of security, more maybe a weakened Iranian regime in terms of leadership or clerics. But the IRGC is firmly at hand. I think it's a real blow if Larijani is dead. But the supreme leader spent years kind of shoring up the lower ranks of the regime. So I think you're going to see the regime in place. And it's really, as we've been talking about, just a question of how far President Trump wants to go. Certainly, you still have to secure that enriched uranium. But I don't think he's going to have the appetite for going to kind of destroy the regime, because that's not really possible.
All right, Elise Labott, thanks for joining us this morning.
Well, back here in the U.S., it seems like everywhere you look on the map is being impacted by March's wild weather. People in Hawaii are starting to clean up from the destructive storm that has been lashing the island since Friday. At least one house was washed away. Others were damaged by floodwaters and wind gusts up to 80 miles per hour. And then here on the mainland, the threat of winter tornadoes has the East Coast on alert. According to the National Weather Service, a tornado touched down in North Carolina, ripping the roof off a warehouse in Charlotte.
In a surprising moment caught on tape, the wind in Texas was so strong. You can look at that, see it fling a child from the door of a home, sent him flying off the porch. We're told he was not seriously injured, just very startled. In Wisconsin, fast-moving winds are fueling an industrial fire. The snowfall there is so deep, it's making it difficult for firefighters to even reach it. Up in Green Bay, more than 26 inches of snow falling since Sunday. That is the biggest snowfall from a single blizzard there in more than 100 years.
NBC News meteorologist Dylan Dreyer will have our complete forecast in just a moment. But first, we've got our Angie Lassman joining us from Green Bay, Wisconsin, where the temperature has been in the single digits overnight. Angie, how you holding up? What's the latest there on this record-breaking blizzard?
I've got one word for you guys, and it's cold. That's how I'm holding up. But the improvements that we've seen across the Midwest have been pretty immense. Notice there is not any more falling snow. We're starting to see folks kind of getting out, cleaning up, clearing the roads. So there have been some improvements, but that after a wild 24 hours across much of the country. We saw more than 300 cities in the Midwest picking up double-digit snowfall, and it wasn't just here in Wisconsin. That was across Michigan as well. You mentioned that that blaze that firefighters were battling, that problematic when it comes to the temperatures as well. We saw those freezing temperatures making it difficult for any of their equipment, and the response times difficult there. That same snow kind of burying folks across parts of northern Michigan. We've got upwards of 3 feet across Herman, Michigan. That's about directly north of here where I am in Green Bay. And of course, even farther south, we saw we saw rare snow across Alabama, where they picked up a dusting in parts of northern Alabama. You, of course, don't see that every day, guys. Some really impressive stats coming from this storm system, and the most powerful they've seen across this region all year long, to say the least.
Angie's learning why those cheese heads come in so handy, because the bright orange really pops in the white of the blizzard there. Angie, real quick, I just have to ask you, have you figured out a strategy for getting home to the East Coast? Because I know it's not easy right now.
Yeah, I think my strategy is hope. I'm going to keep the faith, guys. The good news is a lot of that wild weather has kind of calmed down. We, of course, were watching for the severe storms yesterday and that snow, but most of that kind of working off as that cold front worked to the east. Now it's just the bitter cold temperatures that we're left with across much of the country, while the west swelters. So my plan is to do the best I can as usual.
We're keeping hope alive for you, Angie.
Yeah, we are.
I'll see you guys tomorrow, hopefully.
Okay.
Or we'll see you there. All right.
Thank you.
It is another big weather day, so let's stay with your forecast, get a closer look at what's ahead with this March mega storm.
Yeah, meteorologist Dylan Dreyer has our morning News Now weather. Dylan, good morning.
That big storm that impacted the East Coast, back through the Great Lakes, back through the Midwest yesterday is finally pulling out. The cold front itself has moved through, but back behind it, the winds are still very strong enough to keep that lake effect snow machine going off into Michigan, off of Lake Ontario is where we'll see some of our additional higher snowfall totals. Again, we are looking for a little clipper system to move through parts of the Midwest. That'll bring another couple inches of snow, but up towards Erie, Pennsylvania, back through Cleveland, off into Syracuse especially, that's where we could see another 6 to 10 inches of additional snow because of that lake effect snow machine. So we also have the wind advisories, high wind watches, high wind warnings. Most of these have been pushed up into New England now. So we will see things ease and just calm down a bit through the New York City area. But up into Boston, we're still looking at winds this morning up to about 33 miles per hour. Those will continue to be strong throughout the day. But in New York, where we also have 33 mile per hour wind gusts, those will be easing over the next several hours. Now we want to talk about the cold temperatures. We have frost advisories, freeze alerts, freeze warnings all down along the Gulf Coast. Temperatures are brutally cold, significantly colder than they have been recently. Memphis starting off the day at 26 degrees, Montgomery, Alabama, 29, even down into Florida, temperatures starting off in the mid-30s. Now we go to the Southwest, and it's a totally different story. We're looking at heat warnings in effect. In fact, 38 million people are impacted by the heat. Not only will we see these high temperatures, but we have several record high temperatures in the forecast. Look at all these dots here, all across the West, eventually moving through the Rockies into the plains. Over the next few days, we are going to see record high temperatures. And we're not just talking 90s. We're talking triple-digit heat in parts of the Southwest through California. Temperatures by Friday up to 100 degrees. We're going to stay well above 100 going through the weekend. And we are going to see those records continue to fall as we go through the next couple of days. Back to you.
All right, Dylan, thank you so much. Well, a Utah jury has convicted children's author and mother of 3, Corey Richins, of murdering her husband with a fatal dose of fentanyl.
We, the jury, unanimously find that the defendant, Corey Richins, is guilty of aggravated murder.
The 35-year-old was found guilty on multiple counts, including aggravated murder and fraud. The jury deliberated for just 2 hours. Prosecutors argued she poisoned Eric Richins in 2022, just a year before publishing a children's book about grief dedicated to him. Investigators said Eric had 5 times the lethal amount of fentanyl in his system. Richins did not testify. Sentencing has been set for May.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.